Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sherry Bleho, your host for this one-hour user group meeting. So we'll get going. We're excited to see so many first-timers this month. I'm really confident that you're going to come away from today's meeting with a really good understanding of what's going on with Sage and Scissortail. Holly's been working hard on this. So since this is officially football season, I must say that I think Holly has scored a touchdown with this month's meeting. As always during the meeting, if you hear something great and you want to tweet about it, then we encourage you to engage with us on Twitter using our SmartTalks hashtag, and also the CS3 Twitter handle is at the bottom of this slide. We'd love to connect with you via your favorite social media, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. We participate in all of those. Keep in mind, these are your meetings, and we want to make sure that we're delivering value and what's important to you. So please let us know how we've done, and if there's a specific topic that you feel would be of value to you in the group, let us know so we can figure out how to get that slotted into future months. At the end of today's presentation, we have a short 4-question survey, so you can give us that feedback that we'd like each of you to complete. And for taking a few minutes, this month we've got a Starbucks gift card and a SmartTalks coffee mug that will be given away via drawing to one of you that completes the survey. We'll notify the winner via our newsletter. August's winner of an Amazon gift card, a $50 card, was Betty Baker with Baker Consulting Services. Every single month, it doesn't fail, we get asked if there is a way to get a copy of the slide presentation. This is one you're probably going to want. You can use it either to take notes or for future reference, but all you need to do is go here where your initial registration was, and you can pull that PDF down of the work that Holly's done for you today. For our Serve Access clients, today's slide deck and a recording of the presentation will be available on our website within a couple of days, and we'll tell you more about that later. We have a lot of you in the session today, and I anticipate that we could have quite a few questions on this particular topic, and we want to address them all. But we've needed to put you guys on mute because of this large audience. So if you've got a question, you can just use your Q&A box, and we'll answer them at the end of Holly's show today. So we're on the 14th. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're on the 14th of our 18 service pillars.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we're fortunate to have our VP, Sean Slavin, he's also known as our Chief Chaos Wrangler, to spend a few minutes at each of these Smart Talks to introduce you to one of those service pillars. These are the pillars and the standards that we use as a company to judge our performance and measure the quality of service that we are providing to each of you. Our pillars define how we work to achieve this central purpose, and that's to always provide you with extraordinary knowledge, enabling your greatest success. This month's pillar is Protect Your Integrity. So, Sean, if you're ready, I'll let you step up and share your information with us.
Awesome. So, Sherry, before I begin, is my audio clear?
We're great. Thank you, Sean.
Perfect. All right. As Sherry pointed out, our topic today is to protect your integrity. This topic hits home as a core aspect of a person, not just as a consultant or as an employee. It deals with who you are as an individual. What are your core beliefs? Are you willing to compromise on them? And to what lengths are you willing to go to stand by and protect them? Every month while assembling my presentations, I look for quotes that exemplify or clarify my thoughts on the topic. This month, I came across an article that does such a great job expressing my feelings on the topic that I've chosen to review excerpts of the article with you instead. So the article in question was written by Amy Reese Anderson and was published in the November 28, 2012 or was published on November 28th of 2012. It can be found on the Forbes.com website. If you would like, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to send you a link to that site. So her article is titled, "Success Will Come and Go, but Integrity is Forever." So these are her words. If I could teach you only one value to live by, it would be this. Success will come and go, but integrity is forever. Integrity means doing the right thing at all time and in all circumstances, whether or not anyone is watching. It takes having the courage to do the right thing, no matter what the consequences will be. Building a reputation of integrity takes years, but only takes a few seconds to lose, so never allow yourself to do anything that would damage your integrity. We live in a world where integrity is talked about or isn't talked about nearly enough. We live in a world where the end justifies the means has become an acceptable school of thought for many. Salespeople overpromise and underdeliver, all in the name of making their quota for the month. Applicants exaggerate in job interviews because they desperately need a job. CEOs overstate their projected earnings because they don't want the board of directors to replace them. Entrepreneurs overstate their pro formas because they want the highest valuation possible from investors, and investors understate the company's value in order to negotiate a lower price. Customer service representatives cover up mistakes because they are afraid they might lose a customer. Employees call in sick because they don't have any more paid time off left, and actually they just need to go get their Christmas shopping done. This list could go on. In each case, the person committing the act of dishonesty told themselves they have a perfectly valid reason why the end result justified their lack of integrity. It may seem like people can gain power quickly and easily if they're willing to cut corners and act without the constraints of morality. Dishonesty may provide instant gratification in the moment, but it will never last. After all, each person in the examples above could have gained the results they wanted in the moment, but unfortunately that momentary result comes at an incredibly high price and with far-reaching consequences. That person has lost their ability to be trusted as a person of integrity, which is the most valuable quality anybody can have in their life. Profit in dollars of power is temporary, but profit in a network of people who trust you as a person of integrity is forever. Every person who trusts you will spread the word of that trust to at least a few of their associates, and word of your character will spread like wildfire. The value of the trust others have in you is far beyond anything you can be measured. For entrepreneurs, it means that investors are willing to trust them with their money. For employees, it means that your manager or boss is willing to trust you with additional responsibilities and growth opportunities. For you, it means having an army of people who are willing to go the extra mile to help you because they know that recommending you to others will never bring damage to their reputation and integrity. Yes, the value of the trust others have in you goes well beyond anything that can be measured because it brings along with it limitless opportunities and endless possibilities. A word of advice to those who are striving for a reputation of integrity. Avoid those who are not trustworthy. Don't do business with them. Don't associate with them. Don't make excuses for them. And don't let yourself get enticed in believing that while they may be dishonest with others, they would never be dishonest with me. If someone is dishonest in any aspect of their life, you can be guaranteed that they'll be dishonest in many aspects of their life. You cannot dismiss even those little acts of dishonesty, such as a person who takes 2 newspapers out of a stand when they only paid for one. After all, if a person can't be trusted with the simplest matters of honesty, how then can they be possibly trusted to uphold lengthy and complex business transactions? It's important to realize that others pay attention to those you have chosen to associate with, and they will inevitably judge your character by the character of your friends. Why is that? It's best explained by a quote my father often says when he's reminding me to be careful of the company I'm keeping. When you lay down with dogs, you get fleas. Inevitably, we become more and more like the people we surround ourselves with day to day. If we surround ourselves with people who are dishonest and willing to cut corners to get ahead, then we'll surely find ourselves following a pattern of first enduring their behavior, then accepting their behavior, and finally adopting their behavior. If you want to build a reputation as a person of integrity, then surround yourself with people of integrity. So I don't know if you thought that was worthwhile or not, but it really sang to me. And the net takeaway from this is the integrity of the organization is solely based upon the integrity of the people who work for that organization. How each person responds to situations creates a cumulative reflection on your company. As such, every team member is responsible for maintaining the outward image of the organization. I hope you found this insightful. If you have any questions, or if you have experiences or thoughts or insights you'd like to share, please let us know. We'd love to use them and your input in a future session. Sherry, back to you.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was a great one. I appreciate that. So Holly Novak, as you all know, is a busy woman, especially for you guys that are regular attendees at SmartTalks. She's been like our leading lady this and through all of 2017, and here she is again. We really appreciate her doing this for us one more time. Not only does she manage the CS3 technology group on HCM, all of our HR and payroll implementations and projects, she's our primary consultant for the Human Capital Advisory Group of CS3 Advisors. So I'm going to just go ahead and pass this over to you, Holly. Let me make you presenter.
Okay.
Well, I'm having a little difficulty doing that. Give me just a sec. There
All
we
right.
go. You should have it now.
Very good.
And you can share your screen. Yeah, that's perfect. I think we're good to go. Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you, Holly.
All right, well, thank you, Sherry. So we are going to get started, and just kind of as a summary for the day, we're going to talk about first walking through a history of technology from beginning to future, actually. And then we're going to talk a little bit about a brief history of human capital management software, which is basically just HR payroll software, fancy way of saying it. And then we're going to touch on the history of Sage products and then their current offerings and what's going to come in the future for some of those. And then touch a little bit about CS3's newest product, Scissortail HCM. And then I want to end with talking just for a little bit about why technology is vital to you in whatever role you are, whether that's payroll, HR, CEO, CFO, and just kind of touch on that a little bit, and then we'll have some time for questions. All right, so how did we get here? Let's talk from the very beginning. Very first technology is some people have found, archaeologists have found, all the way back to the Greek times where they had some payroll software, right? And then probably the first modern technology is going to be paper, and that's where we go from there. So beyond paper, let's talk a little bit about DOS. So you see my timeline down there at the bottom. I went ahead and put paper when it was invented in 105 AD, and then we have the typewriter next, right, in 1714. And then from there, the Pony Express was in 1861. So from 1861 all the way to 1939, that's when Hewlett-Packard was founded. So pretty big jump there in pretty big span of time. But quickly after that, DOS was developed. And so DOS, when it was developed, was all about gathering data, trying to figure out a way to gather all the data that people had going on. And so it started with a program called CPM, which is Control Program for Microcomputers. And then it quickly changed from that into QDOS, which I had no idea. I learned so much during this presentation, but Quick and Dirty Operating System is what QDOS was called. And then Microsoft went ahead and purchased that in 1981, and that's where we get MS-DOS or Microsoft DOS. So MS-DOS really laid the groundwork for Microsoft's ongoing success. It really, really for the personal computer market was a huge deal. And you can see down in 1981, that's also when the IBM personal computer was released. So from DOS, we go forward on in time to Microsoft Windows. So you see down there at the bottom again, the timeline changes every slide, but 1982, that's when Lotus 123 was developed. I'm sure that a lot of you remember that and used it. And then you can see as the timeline progresses on, 1984 was when the first Mac came out, and then Windows 3 in 1990. But Windows was really first introduced as just a way to make MS-DOS look pretty. A graphical operating system. They started with Windows 1.0 in 1985, And that really dominated the world's personal computer market. It was a huge deal back then. I'm sure some of you remember that. But Windows 95 was released in 1995, and that really was a huge release for Microsoft. It made a big difference in the way that Windows looked. I do want to touch a little bit on where we kind of are currently with Windows. So you can see this was done in 2015 actually, but you can see Windows 7 still made up over 50% of the personal computer market. And so something to really take a look at and think about if you are in that 52% right there. Windows 7 will be going away in 2020, and so that's really going to be a big impact on a lot of people that are still using some of those older versions, especially of Windows. So Windows 7 was released in 2009, and then we move forward, of course, to our current technology, which is the web browser. So really the web browser is just a software application for retrieving and presenting and transversing information on the World Wide Web. And so you see down at the bottom, the birth of the modem was in 1949, which I had no idea actually it was that far back. And then it took 20 years from there to 1969 for networks to actually come online. But what I thought was really fascinating is in 1989, the internet reached 100,000 hosts. But just, 7 years later, it was up to 36 million users. So that's really fast. Really, in 1990 is when the World Wide Web was born. So you can see how fast it's taken off. In 2004, that's when we got Google and Facebook, the first camera phone in 2000, and then we'll talk about the cloud in just a second. But the very first web browser was called World Wide Web, and then they later renamed it to Nexus, and then later on Netscape Navigator. It's one of the very first web browsers that I ever used. And so it really exploded with Mosaic. And so that was a huge deal in the world of web browsing. Then as we move forward, we're now going quicker and quicker into cloud computing. So that's what we're going to talk about next just a little bit. It was also fascinating to me to look back and see cloud computing actually began in the 1950s with time-sharing methods. And so they really started on that a long time ago. Again, the networks came online in 1969, but you can see that the actual term cloud computing did not develop until 1997. So really not that long ago. And then you have Amazon that launches their first cloud computing system in 2006. So what is the cloud? The first thing that you need to understand about the cloud is that it's not a physical thing. It's really just a network of servers, and each server has a different function. So some servers are used to running applications, some servers are used to deliver a service or to compute power, lots of different things. So a good example I thought is if you take a picture on your smartphone, it's stored in your phone's internal system. And then when you upload that photo to Instagram or to Facebook or wherever you want to upload it, that's when you're uploading it to the cloud. And so even if you say, I don't use the cloud, if you ever uploaded a photo to Facebook or Instagram, then you do. That's where it goes. So that's just a good way to think of it. The business decision for employers really to move to the cloud is often financially motivated. Companies used to have to buy all their own hardware equipment, and then the value of that, of course, depreciated over time. You had to replace it. But now with the cloud, you really only have to pay for what you use. And it's modeled that way so that you can easily scale up or down depending on what you need. And so that really allows your company to be nimble and efficient and really cost effective. So if your company quickly needs to access more resources, it can scale up, and then also if it needs to reduce resources for whatever reason, you can quickly scale down. And so kind of like a rubber band, the cloud has a great elasticity when it comes to those sort of things. The first SaaS, which is software as a service product that I found as far as HR payroll HCM systems go was 1998 is when ADP first released their first cloud-based system. So there could be another one before that, but in my research, that's as far as I could go back to find a cloud-based system there. So speaking of HCM, let's touch on that just a little bit. A brief history of HCM technology. back in 7000 BC is when they first discovered, archaeologists have found some evidence of payroll records carved into stone. And really, those are very similar to the same payroll HR type things that we do today. So I thought that was pretty fascinating as well. And then, of course, we have our paper up there. And then next, in 1950, Leo was introduced, which Lion's Electronic Office. And so that really started as kind of a business operating system for business computing purposes, but it quickly revolved into payroll, inventory, those sort of things. And so I thought it was neat to look back at some of those pictures of them working on those first systems then. Of course, we have our Lotus 1, 2, 3 there, which you could have done with payroll. I don't know for sure, but maybe some of you did. And then we have our computerized payroll that developed pretty quickly after that. And then now, all of these things, the last kind of 3, are really what's current and then what's in the future of what HCM payroll is going to look like. So we have our SaaS or cloud payroll. Mobile computing is a huge thing right now, and then APIs, which is what we're going to talk about in just a little bit. All right, so now I want to talk about what's coming. I'm sure a lot of you right now have on-premise systems, and for a variety of reasons, they're hard to maintain. You have to do the maintenance, your IT has to come and do the updates on the server, and then maybe go to each one of your clients and do those updates as well. And so really, that's a process that takes not only your time, but your IT time, and then more expensive to maintain. So a revolution is underway in the world of technology to ensure that your payroll solution is available over the web. And so that largely solves the problem that we see with on-premise systems. It really gives you so much more flexibility and sustainability. So our employees are our largest asset, which is why really the most mission-critical component for any business backend is arguably how you do your payroll, right? And so one of the biggest things right now, we talked about it a little bit, but is cloud computing. Really, that is the most significant development to happen in HCM software over time. The advent of the cloud, with that, you know, tax updates are done immediately. You don't have to wait for those. It saves so much time and effort there. One of the next things that's coming up and is current right now is mobile computing. It's really a growing trend, and some vendors are probably maybe even actually a little bit ahead of their clients at this moment. It's really just about awareness and adoption from the clients. But mobile computing will give your employees the ability to access any of their information from any device that they have in their hand at the time. So especially for those people that are out in the field or have employees that are all over the place, they have availability at the very instant. And then another thing that's up and coming right now is APIs, application program devices. So unlike the DOS and Windows days that we just talked about, where one app didn't talk very well to another app, in the browser world, this is how they solve that problem. So one example that I found, because I honestly didn't know what an API was until a couple of days ago, but you can go to a website now when you go and visit a restaurant, and they have a Google map on there, and you can automatically see where the restaurant is, how to get there. And so that is an example of an API. Google Maps is talking to that other website. Another example would be if you go to a website and there's a YouTube video that's playing on there already, then that is another example of an API. So those are really big and being integrated right now into the HCM systems. A couple of other new and fancy things out there. The first one is called Bitcoin, and this is really cryptocurrency, which is really just a digital payment system. And so it's a way to decentralize currency. You don't have to have a central repository or a single administrator. It's a way to accept payments in a much different way. And so I don't know how much this is impacting HR payroll right now, but it is huge in the accounting world. Any place that will actually take payments, that's a huge thing. So be on the lookout for Bitcoin. And this one, though, that really is impacting the HR payroll world is called blockchain. And so imagine if everything that you read on Wikipedia was really a fact. Like you could go on there and it's a proven factual info that you can rely on. So simply put, blockchain is a way to do that. It's a decentralized database shared among a network of computers where everything has to be approved in an exchange before it can be recorded. It's pretty fascinating, really, to think about the ability that this has. So in Japan, right now they're using blockchain technology to develop a prototype resume authentication database for job hunters and for employers. So that increases complete transparency on both sides. The employers can look for fraudulent credentials, confirmation of education, of employment validation, all kinds of things like that. So really, it has a great potential to really impact the way that we do work, especially maybe on the recruiting side. Another big thing in the world today is artificial intelligence. I know that you've heard it, you've probably seen a lot about it, but artificial intelligence, AI or BI, business intelligence, is huge. Maybe not impacting the HR world this very second, but it definitely is in the works. They are working on ways to do that. So artificial intelligence would really be a way for us to ensure that our payroll is running on time and that it's 100% accurate, which of course would be all of our goal, right, to make sure that no matter what, our payroll is accurate. But this would also touch all HR functions, so recruitment, employee training, development, and then of course you have your payroll. But with this software, they call it self-learning or deep learning, where you can actually have the program go in and gradually facilitate the detection of likely or non-obvious payroll errors, and they learn that the system will learn that over time, and then allow you to run 100% accurate payroll without any margin of error. And so kind of interesting and fascinating to think about at the same time, but that's coming, and that's going to be definitely embedded in a lot of your HCM systems in the near future. Another good thing that AI is already doing in some areas is calculating the probability that one person would be a better hire than another person in the recruiting world. So that's already in place as well. So that's some stuff that's up and coming, really interesting stuff coming, so keep your eye out on the web as you look through those things. Now I want to talk a little bit about the history of Sage and CS3 products. So our very first, or maybe not first, but longest current client on Abra began with us in 1997, and they began with Abracadabra. I don't know how many of you knew that Abra used to be called Abracadabra, but it was, of course, a DOS-based platform, Fox Pro Data, and so that's the longest one. And then we go from Abracadabra to what was later called Best Abra, and then later, of course, Sage Abra Suite. So Abra is a DOS-based platform, runs on Fox Pro, and I want to talk a little bit about Fox Pro just so that you can kind of get an idea about it. But it was developed in 1984, and you can see that in 2015, Microsoft has ended support for Fox Pro. And so they really have gone through, not just with Fox Pro, but with other areas, and they've removed support for older technologies due to security vulnerabilities. And so that is why we had to make a change. Sage had, not we, but Sage had to make a change in the way that Abra was set up. And so they started that. Another thing that's coming up, the end of Windows 7, as I mentioned earlier, is in 2020. And so that is also going to have a huge impact possibly on not only Abra, but a lot of other systems. And so because of all of those things, Sage made the decision to move towards Sage HRMS. And so it's a Windows platform. Again, it has the SQL data, and so it's not just for going from Abra to Sage HRMS, it wouldn't just be an update for you. It's actually migrating your data from that Fox Pro database to a SQL database. So not just copying it over, but you actually have to migrate the data over. So it is a new look and feel. You can see this is the homepage here for HRMS. I'm sure most of you have seen that before. They do have a new homepage on there. It has the ability to add in some links, some other really nice things in there, messages. And then it has a consistent feel in HRMS, and then your employee self-service, and then maybe some other products like your HR Actions, that sort of thing. They want to have a consistent feel. My Workforce Analyzer to have a consistent feel on all of those items. And then also it has the ability to do some connected services. So I want to talk a little bit about the connected services. You can see here on the screen, now you have the ability to add in not only your Sage 100, Sage X3, those sort of things, but you can also add in links right into HRMS for your cyber train, cyber recruiter, HR actions, all of those things right there in the system. So pretty neat there. And then one of the features that I like the most, just because I'm a big employee self-service user, but it's the employee self-service single sign-on. So really neat. With HRMS, you have the ability to just open up an employee's record in HRMS. If you have employee self-service, click on the self-service little button there, and then it actually opens up employee self-service as them. So as a former HR person, it would be extremely helpful for me to be able to go in and see when your employees call, well, I can't see this or I can't see that. You can actually go in as them and see exactly what they're seeing. So I thought that was a great add-on. So there's so many more things that we could talk about HRMS, but I want to move on from there now and do a quick timeline for you from from Abra Suite to HRMS. So you can see in 1980 is when Abra Suite was released, and then in 2005, that's when they went ahead and released the HRMS HR module that was SQL-based. So that was done first, and then in 2007, they released the payroll module that was SQL-based for HRMS. And then the big day in 2014, that's when they actually stopped selling Abra Suite to new customers. And so it's been about 3 years now where no new sales of Abra Suite are happening. And then, of course, in 2016, they released HRMS 2016 at Summit, and we're now on 2017 as of just a couple of months ago. So that's kind of a neat timeline for you to think about. All right, so we talked about Abra and we talked about HRMS. Now I want to move towards a couple of other services or programs that Sage offers that may not currently be in CS3's portfolio, but we want to make you aware of them so that you can kind of get an idea of what's out there. And the first one is Sage Payroll Services. It is actually, Sage acquired a payroll bureau, so they actually do the entire payroll for you. There's two options there. You have your Payroll Essentials, which is really just up to 25 employees, and they're both cloud-based, browser-based. And then you have the full service that's anywhere from 5 to 500 employees. And so it's payroll only. There's no HR functionality really at all there, but we wanted to make you aware of that. And then another new offering that Sage has out is Sage People. So Sage acquired a program called Scissortail recently, and it is a browser-based platform as well, good for about 200 to 3,000 employees. It's an HR-only system, so no payroll at this time. And they are working on a global payroll product, and probably at least 2 to 3 years before it would actually be in production. It will connect to some payroll options if you already have a payroll in place. This may be a good option for you to just use on the HR side. It does have a social platform, so you can kind of see here with some of the pictures, they have some video recruiting, that sort of thing. So it is adds some people management features for you that you might be interested in. But that is Sage People. Again, no payroll option for that, just the HR side. So I want to talk a little bit about our current product at CS3, Scissortail HCM, and why we chose to go with this. It's a Kronos-based product, and we did a lot of analysis, two different really long-term analysis on what would be the best offering for our clients on both the HR and the payroll side that was cloud-based, that really had all of the things that we felt like our clients would want and appreciate. And you know, we spent a lot of time going through that and making sure that we did our due diligence to pick the right one. And we finally ended up with Scissortail HCM. And so I want to talk a little bit about why. One of the first reasons is that it's a single database. It includes everything from recruiting, onboarding, performance management, compensation, time and attendance, scheduling, payroll, all of those things at once, which a lot of systems have. But one of the great things about this system is that it's all in one database. You only have to enter your data once. So I know a lot of programs are integrated together, but you still have to maybe send stuff from HR to payroll or vice versa or something like that. But this one is truly one database, which is a big deal to us. and we thought it would be a big deal to you as well. Another thing is the reporting capabilities. And so there's over 150 different standard reports for HR and timekeeping and payroll, but you can also add your own ad hoc reports. But what I really like is the ability that it has to just customize your reports very nicely. And you can see on the screen there, this is just an example of a report. It has your available columns and your selected columns, and you can easily add or take away fields, and it's simply that easy on any of the reports. So that's very nice. Another thing is the real-time visibility. So your data is going to be updated real-time, which means that you have much better accurate reporting for making better business decisions. So when there's an employee exception, like an employee misses a punch, or they arrive late or early, managers can deal with that exception right there when it happens, instead of waiting for the payroll administrator to process the payroll and then make an adjustment, all of that, recalculate. They can just do it right there at the click of a button. So employees can also see how much overtime they have through their last punch, and then get their up-to-date time off balances right there. So really important to have that information right at your fingertips, available to your employees and to your managers. Another thing is the tax table updates. Those are automatically updated to ensure accurate withholdings, of course, as any cloud system would be. But one of the cool things about Scissortail HCM is that it uses geospatial mapping technology to determine and withhold the appropriate taxes for that employee based on wherever they work or they live. And so if you have a lot of employees in different states, this is extremely helpful to make sure that you're doing the correct taxes for them. And so another thing is the navigation to-dos and quick links. You can see on the screen there where a manager would have or an employee would have the to-dos right there on the screen for them to go in and manage their time off request or a form that they need to sign. It's just right there on the screen, either mobile or on their computer. And then another huge thing is the workflow and custom forms. I know that a lot of systems have neat custom forms for you to do, but one of the things that I love the most about HCM is that you can actually upload your current forms in a PDF version, add in the fields that you want your employees to sign, and have them do an electronic signature on the form and then send it through your workflow, whatever that workflow looks like. And so that's really cool. I love playing with that. It's a great addition to Scissortail. And then, of course, the APIs. So we wanted to make sure that any program that we chose had that API functionality. So if you wanted to add in videos or certain apps in your program, that you would have the ability to do that. All right. So one of the other things that we thought was very important as we walked through and picked a system is to make sure that any system that we chose has continuously updating or investing back into their product. And so we found that with Kronos. They continuously do product investments. And you can see here with the different areas, HR, time and attendance, payroll, how they're going through, and as things change, as the times change, laws change all the time, technology changes, of course, they go in and consistently make sure that their system is improved. And again, since it's cloud, it can just be improved simultaneously. And so you can see, I'm not going to read them all, but for HR, you have the compensation, position management, United Platform, there's a recruiting heat map, which is really neat, and then, of course, their API infrastructure. So I just wanted to throw that out there and so that you can see how they're continuously making everything better for their customers. Along that same line, this is the HCM investments for Scissortail over the next couple of years. And so it's all broken down, but for succession planning, you can see specific succession planning tools, bench strength calculations, some things about learning, attendance reports, and training paths, that sort of thing. With recruiting, really great scoring and assessment options for you, job boards, and then for positions, I mentioned the budgeted positions. If you're a nonprofit or have a board, a lot of you have to have those budgeted positions. I know I did when I was in that role, and so that's really important to be able to have that functionality. And then, of course, we all know that the EEO-1 is changing, so making sure that they're on top of that so that they can change the core HR function as things happen in the world. A couple of other things, they're adding a new mobile app in the fall of 2017 that's really going to be nice and clean for you. I'm going to show you a picture in just a second, but some changes with their time and attendance and their HR and payroll, really to make it the most usable, user-friendly for the employees and for the managers. So kind of a fresh new design. This is what it looks like. You can see for the dashboards for the employees and managers, how they have their clock in and clock out there, vacation time and their pay. And then from another view, you can see kind of their benefits and what announcements are coming out. And this would be the view on an iPad. Speaking of benefits, for benefit enrollment, here's what it would look like for an employee to do an open enrollment there on both the phone, the mobile, and then the iPad as well. So kind of bringing that to a close, you can see again the different offerings there for Scissortail HCM, but just want to kind of end with a couple of other things. So again, Scissortail provides a complete automation and high quality information. In today's busy environment, we want to make sure that we all have, if we're going to take the time to look at information, it needs to be that high quality. Also that common user interface with all of the workflows, so really nice to be able to go that single source. So if you're doing a workflow, you can do a workflow that crosses all the different modules if you have them all. So that's really nice to be able to do that and not have to mess with the different databases. Again, Scissortail is flexible, cloud-based solution, and easy to afford. One of the coolest things that I think is that you can use the modules either together or separately. So if you don't have a need for maybe recruiting, you don't have to do that. Or if you just need HR or time and attendance, you can just use the specific modules and adjust them as necessary. So a quick cartoon break, right? From a consultant view, this was kind of funny to me. Hopefully it's funny to you too, but why do we care so much about the technology, right? Sometimes we just want to throw our computers out the window and not even mess with it at all. But I would tell you that technology is extremely vital to all of us in whatever role we're in, whether you're HR, payroll, CEO, CFO, whatever role you're in, you need to understand how the world is changing and how we need to change along with it. And if we don't, then it's really going to be hard for us to move forward and to get good talent. But I know you probably heard a ton about the workforce and millennials and how they're going to change the world and all of that, and I don't want to get into a ton of it right now, but I do think it's important to take a minute and think about really how our work is going to change, how our world at work is going to change over the next few years. And so this graph here, it shows how in 2010, the difference between that and then all the way to 2020. So not just the millennials, which are going to make up over 50% of the workforce, but also your Gen Xers. So those two together, technology is extremely important for both of those generations. And then now there's this new generation that I just heard about called the Xennials or something like that. And they're right in the middle between the Gen X and the millennials, and they're also hugely technology-based. And so I just want to take just a second to think about that and to think how we need to adjust our world and technology to make sure that we're going in line with that. So just to touch a second on millennials, some of the things about millennials that are really important is that they need that feedback continuously. So if you don't have a system in place to be able to give consistent feedback, that's going to be a problem. They think digital, they're impatient, all of those things. But technology has become completely unified in the everyday life of millennials. So they no longer ask for sufficient technology at their jobs. They really expect it. And often this is sometimes painted as entitlement, but it's really not entitlement. It's really they're wanting what they need, the equipment that they need, and the tools that they need to do their job efficiently. So I want you to think about that and think about how that impacts you moving forward. But not only the millennials, not only the employees in our workforce, I want to take a step and think about how your CEO or CFO sees you in whatever role you're in. If you're in HR or payroll, whatever that role is, how do they see you? And so as somebody that's been in that role before, this was really fascinating to me. The Global Leadership Forecast did a poll recently, and they found that 43% of the CEOs and CFOs see 43% of their HR payroll managers as reactors. So really somebody that develops and administers policy, they make sure that they're compliant, they give HR advice when needed, but really the majority of their time is spent reacting. And that was really interesting to me, and only 37% see them as a little bit better, embedded in the business, resolving some talent issues, and not just on the talent management side, but overall supporting different initiatives. And so really only 20%, the CEOs and CFOs see only 20% of their HR payroll managers as anticipators. And that's really what they're wanting, somebody to interpret the trends and translate those into opportunities, really to make sure that your talent management or your human capital architecture is really aligned with business strategies. And so that's extremely important, and I know that your managers want that from you. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about that. So how do you get that way, right? How do you make sure that you are that anticipator instead of just reacting to everything? Well, I would argue that it's all about the data. So the hottest topic in the payroll world right now specifically is how management can get the financial information about its human capital. And so a lot of this interfaces to new payroll solutions and consoles and all of that stuff, but a lot of that is really based on future technology. And so it's more than just a report that you give to your managers. It's really making sure that they have the tools that they need. So dashboards that instantly show employee turnover by region, or unscheduled time off by department, or average salary by a cost center or location. All of that is extremely important to make sure that your managers are able to make the decisions that they need that will impact the bottom line. So more importantly almost is not just the reports that you're given, but the simplification of the reporting to make sure that you're not just giving them reports or statements that they don't know how to read or don't understand, but really making sure that you utilize technology in a way that it helps improve both the manager access to the financial data and then also the simplification of those reports so that they can understand them and use them to make decisions on. So, of course, a lot of that can be done by cloud-based solutions. We already talked about this a lot, but just to touch on it a little bit more, again, cloud-based solutions are extremely cost-effective. They reduce the need for IT support, and it really allows multiple customers, whether they're your employees, your supervisors, whoever, to access that same application simultaneously. A lot of people talk about, and I know my former company talked a lot about data security, and so they didn't feel like that it was secure unless it was right there. They knew it was on their servers, and they knew they could keep it secure. But you have to remember that there's a lot of adherence to government compliance and regulations that go along with having a cloud-based system. So there's a lot of security in place and standards in place that are very rigorous to make sure that all data is secure in the cloud. And then also you have your firewalls and encrypted transmissions to make sure that the data stays secure as well. Another thing I want to talk a little bit about is the shorter learning curve. So with a cloud-based system, you have a shorter learning curve. A lot of those applications are plug and play, so you can just implement them and then move on to much more vital HR and payroll issues that you need to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then one of the other things that is really neat to think about is being able to track an employee life cycle. So HCM platforms nowadays have the ability for you to look from hire to retire and make sure that you're really seeing the trends in your different life cycles of your employees so that you can see your trends over time and make better decisions as you're doing your recruiting and your hiring. And HCM cloud-based systems have the ability to do that for you. And then, of course, the better employee engagement. Having your employees be able to access any of their information from wherever they are at that moment, if they're at the car lot or wherever, being able to pull up their phone and see their HR, their benefits, all of that information right there is really relieving for you as an HR payroll person so that you don't have to deal with those with phone calls, but also relieving for their employees so that they can better be engaged. So That's a lot of words, but I wanted to end with a really neat kind of view for you of an overall timeline of technology. And I know those words are really little and you can't read them, but I made some of them big so that you can see them. But I wanted to give you just a graphical picture of how fast our technology has progressed over time. So that very first one there is the paper that was invented in 105 AD, and then all the way to 1969 when the first networks came online. That period of time is over 1,800 years. It's just crazy to even think about. But from there, we take when networks came online to just when the World Wide Web was born, and that period of time is only 21 years. And so you can see the difference there and how fast, once the networks were online, once the very first computer stuff was developed, how quickly it became the World Wide Web and grew so fast. But even more fascinating to me was going from the World Wide Web when that was born all the way to when the cloud networks were released. That's only 7 years, guys. So really how quickly, even if you think about it, when the browser was developed, Windows was already almost obsolete. So as new technology is being developed, our current technology, not the past, but the current technology may already be obsolete. And so really understanding the importance of that and making sure that we do all that we can to make sure that we are staying up to date and having the most up-to-date data and technology. That's all I have, Sherry. Do we have any questions?
We do have some questions, and that was a lot. Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and get my screen set back up to share this, and then we'll talk about a couple of these questions. You can see my screen again, Holly?
Yes.
Okie dokie. So the first one is, would Sage People be, that's one that's the new browser tool from Sage, would that be an add-on to HRMS or just a replacement, or a full, not just a full replacement?
So Sage People is an HR-only product, and so you could use Sage People in conjunction with Sage HRMS Payroll. Or if you have a different payroll system, you could use Sage People with a different payroll system.
Okay. It says, I have Sage HRMS. Wouldn't you consider it cloud since it has employee self-service?
No, Sage HRMS is an on-premise system, so it's installed on your servers and then on your specific computers, where ESS looks like the cloud. It's not necessarily a cloud, it's a website, but that data still comes from the server. The data is not in the cloud. It's still on your SQL server. That makes sense.
Okay. So I'll add a little bit. I mean, it's browser-based, so it feels like a cloud application, but the data is stored locally. So it's kind of a hybrid, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Okay. Does Sage, what do mobile applications look like for Sage HR today?
There's no true mobile for employee self-service. You can, so if you have your employee self-service where you can access it from the outside of your network, you can go to employee self-service on your phone. The capabilities and the look of that is not necessarily extremely mobile right now. It may be in the future, but at this point in time, it's not extremely mobile. But you can see it. You just have to do a little finagling to look at all that information.
It doesn't have a true mobile app.
Right, exactly.
Okay. The next one I think I can answer for you, Holly. I'll let you catch your breath. It says, what is the retirement date for Sage Abra? And I know Holly wasn't definitive in her presentation because Sage hasn't been definitive yet. That product hasn't been sold for several years now. You can't buy a new license of it. Sage is continuing to just put their loving arms around the Abra people as they encourage them to move off. They do have great apprehensions on what's going to happen in 2020. So I think we've spoken to most of our clients already that we need to get that addressed and move to the product of your choice before then. That would be the safe thing to do. Then the last question here, Holly, is you mentioned you could migrate Abra to HRMS. Can you migrate Abra to Scissortail?
Absolutely. Yep. Yes.
That's pretty straightforward. Yes, we can.
I guess I can talk more about that. Yeah, but yeah, you definitely can. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Well, let's just do that was fabulous, Holly. Thank you very much. Let's just do the last little bit of our wrap-up, and then we'll let everybody get on to the rest of their day. We wanted to remind everybody that whenever you're getting support, that we'd like for you to start by logging a support ticket online. And it's as simple as going to the website. Any place on our website, we have this option that's called Client Service Center. It appears on every page. When you click on it, then it's going to take you into the Client Service Center, and right here is the option to submit a support request. And the nice thing about doing this is that every person on Brandy's and Holly's team sees that a support request comes through, and that way if any one given person is busy, tied up with a payroll emergency, that's going to be seen by everyone in the department, and it will get funneled to the next appropriate and available team member. The other option that you can use, if you wanted to, you could send an email to support@cs3tech.com. Then someone here inside our system is going to go log it in to that support ticket system that I just described, and that way it'll get queued up for everyone to see it as well. So if you would do that, then we can help you and can serve you most effectively. On October 2nd and November 7th, Bruno Tellis is going to be the featured speaker in Broken Arrow, Leading in Business Boot Camp at the Tulsa CPA event. He's going to be teaching about business growth and grooming. Bruno's also been asked to teach about leadership December 13th at the MGMA in Oklahoma City. He's just a brilliant and entertaining guy to listen to, so if any of those dates work with you, you could go to those respective organizations' website for more information about those. Holly and some of the millennials on our staff will be at the Tulsa OSCPA event on October 18th to share from the mouth of the babe. That was originally aired here on SmartTalks and was well received, and so we've been asked to do a repeat performance of that. And then, of course, we'll be a supporting sponsor at the HR Southwest in Fort Worth and the Accounting Expo in Oklahoma City. And so stop by the trade show booth if you're at any of those events. And the last thing we've got to share here today is what's coming up in SmartTalks. Got some great presentations lined up for the remainder of the year. Next month, our very own Jessica Morency is going to review the benefits of a time collection system. This is a good topic both for payroll and ERP clients. So regardless of which one of our products you use, you'll find this to be an extremely valuable session. She's going to be sharing ways to reduce overtime expenditures, managing attendance issues, employee manager tools within the time collection. And everyone talks about the importance of employees as your #1 asset. So let's take an hour to see how we can help manage it more effectively. For all of our Serve Access Plan clients, today's session's been recorded, and you're going to find that recording in the slide deck at CS3 University. If you're not on a Serve plan, then Jessica Morency will be glad to talk to you about that and all the benefits that you get with it. If you want to keep up to date on all the upcoming events, as I mentioned earlier, our social media team has that information flowing, so take a minute to follow us with whatever social media you prefer. Lastly, don't forget to fill out that survey, and we thank you so much for your time. We want everybody to enjoy the football season. For me, as a mom of 3 musicians, it's all about halftime and marching band. But regardless, either way, I hope your favorite team or band wins. Everybody have a great day.